There are plenty of UFC fighters who have achieved popularity by attaining the affection of the masses. Conversely, several mixed martial artists have built their stardom off of the loathing of fans and pundits alike. In fact, many of the biggest names in the UFC are among the most despised. In this episode, we'll focus on some of the sport's most prominent villains. As always, if you guys enjoy this video, then please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Now, without further ado, and ranked in no particular order, let's take a look at 10 of the most hated fighters in UFC history. Number 10. Josh Koscheck. Former NCAA wrestler Josh Koscheck's status as a villain was established on the inaugural season of The Ultimate Fighter. Throughout the reality series, the smug bleach blonde bullied castmates like Chris Lieben and even mocked him after winning their eventual clash in the cage. The Portland native's cocky persona and ability to trash talk didn't win over many fans. Moreover, he was also despised by opponents such as Paul Semtex Daly. Koscheck got under the Englishman's skin to the point where Daly went so far as to strike him after their bout had concluded, an act that would cost Semtex his career in the UFC. Apparently, the former welterweight title challenger had a knack for rubbing people the wrong way long before his television debut. On a UFC 124 countdown show, his old college wrestling coach recalled that Koscheck didn't have many fans on the team because of his off-putting behavior.
He was such a prick. He didn't get along with kids. The kids respected him, maybe feared him, but he did not, have a truckload of friends coming through college.
Number 9. Rousimar Palhares. Unlike most of the entrants on our list, Brazil's Rousimar Palhares wasn't particularly outspoken. Of course, his actions in the ring were more than enough to generate controversy. The Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt had a nasty habit of holding submissions long after his opponents had tapped. This unfortunate practice first came to the forefront during his UFC 111 bout with Tomás Draval. Just 45 seconds into round 1, the Brazilian secured a heel hook that forced his opponent to tap. Unfortunately, Palhares held the lock for several seconds after his opponent tapped, resulting in a 90-day suspension. Sadly, failing to release submissions became a recurring theme throughout the talented grappler's career. Palhares would eventually be cut from the UFC after failing to let go of a heel hook in a 2013 fight with Mike Pierce. He would later be suspended from the World Series of Fighting for, once again, failing to let go of a submission in a clash with Jake Shields. The prolonged submissions made Palhares unpopular with fans and despised by his opponents. Number 8. Colby Covington. Some fighters simply end up being hated, while others, like Colby "Chaos" Covington, go out of their way to upset the public. Once a quiet, nondescript grappler, the California product has since adopted a villainous persona that has made him one of the most talked about figures in the sport. Covington has insulted just about every fighter on the UFC roster, as well as athletes in other sports like NBA star LeBron James. Chaos hasn't won over many MMA fans either, often referring to the UFC audience as nerds and virgins.
Greetings, nerds and virgins!
Moreover, Covington's outspoken support of former U.S. President Donald Trump has rubbed some people the wrong way. He's even made comments toward rivals like Kamaru Usman that some pundits consider over the line. While some of his remarks come off as contrived, there's no denying that the former interim champ has gotten the sports world's attention, for better or worse. Number 7. Tito Ortiz. The Huntington Beach bad boy Tito Ortiz was arguably the sport's first great villain. His bleach blonde hair and cocky attitude made him easy to dislike for most people. Furthermore, at a time when MMA was all about respect, the former light heavyweight champ showed very little. Ortiz would sometimes don insulting t-shirts after a fight to rub it in his opponent's face. After defeating Guy Mezger at UFC 19, the Huntington Beach native pulled out this infamous t-shirt, then proceeded to flip off his coach and future rival, Ken Shamrock. He also donned a t-shirt during the UFC 84 weigh-ins that took aim at UFC president Dana White. The incidents made Ortiz a megastar and a fighter most fans love to hate. As his UFC career declined, the former light heavyweight champion would often blame poor performance on injuries, which didn't help win over many new fans. In recent years, Ortiz began to dabble in politics and even had a brief stint as a member of the Huntington Beach City Council. His controversial stance on several issues made him a lightning rod for criticism, which ultimately prompted him to resign. Tito Ortiz may not be the most beloved athlete, but he always seems to give people something to talk about both in and out of the cage. Number 6. Rhonda Rousey. Rowdy Rhonda Rousey took the MMA world by storm on her way to becoming one of the sport's biggest stars. At the height of her popularity, the former bantamweight queen was on several magazine covers and even appeared in blockbuster movies. However, as her career progressed, the MMA faithful began to sour on the trailblazer out of Riverdale, California. Public opinion began to shift on Rousey during her time as a coach on The Ultimate Fighter 18, where she appeared overly hostile toward her opposing coach and rival Miesha Tate. Rousey would cement her status as a villain by refusing to shake Tate's hand following her victory at UFC 168. While the Tate feud showed the Rowdy one could be a sore winner, she didn't handle defeat particularly well either. After being upset by Holly Holm at UFC 193, Rousey disappeared for almost a year and avoided the media entirely, causing fans and pundits to question her mental toughness. Things only got worse after a decisive loss to Amanda Nunes as Rousey's relationship with the media became increasingly strained, which only added to the perception that the ex-bantamweight champ couldn't handle a loss. By the time Rousey retired following the Nunes loss, most of the MMA world had turned against the former UFC Golden Girl. Number 5. Conor McGregor. The notorious Conor McGregor has more than lived up to his nickname in recent years. A universally loved box office attraction in the early part of his UFC run, the Irishman's reputation has since taken a major downturn. Many of McGregor's worst infractions have taken place outside the ring. Sadly, the former two-division champ has gotten in altercations with the elderly, a rapper, and most recently, an Italian DJ. However, his recent comments referencing Khabib's deceased father, who passed away due to complications from COVID-19, have clearly crossed the line in the eyes of many MMA fans.
Just a sick world we're living in, sick people.
Moreover, McGregor also stepped out of bounds by threatening to murder his rival Dustin Poirier following their most recent encounter at UFC 264. Unfortunately, the once playful MMA star's trash talk has taken a darker tone, which has understandably caused many to reconsider their fandom. Number 4. Jon Jones. Rochester, New York's Jon Jones may be the greatest mixed martial artist in the business. Of course, he has also become one of the most controversial. In truth, his numerous misdeeds could easily warrant their own episode. Jones has had numerous issues with performance-enhancing drugs, which have resulted in lengthy suspensions, forcing him to vacate the light heavyweight strap on multiple occasions. Still, actions outside the cage have caused many in the MMA community to turn on the former light heavyweight champion. In 2015, Jones was involved in a hit-and-run incident in which he injured a pregnant woman and fled the scene. He would plead guilty to leaving the scene of an accident and be sentenced to 18 months probation. From there, in 2019, Jones was charged with battery for an incident involving a cocktail waitress at an Albuquerque strip club. The waitress claimed that the UFC star put her in a chokehold, kissed her neck, and touched her inappropriately after being asked to stop. Jones would plead no contest and receive a 90-day deferred sentence. Unfortunately, his downward spiral continued with his recent domestic violence arrest. This past September, Jones's daughter asked a hotel security guard to contact the authorities to break up an altercation between the troubled fighter and his fiancée. While being detained, Jones made matters worse by headbutting a police car. This time he was charged with 1 count of domestic battery and tampering with a police vehicle. Understandably, Jones's fanbase has continued to dwindle in a big way. Number 3. Chael Sonnen. The American gangster Chael Sonnen is a classic example of how a fighter's public image can change over time. While I'm sure most people are familiar, some newer fans may not know that before he became a popular commentator and podcast host, Sonnen was quite the controversial figure. Sonnen's trash talk got under a lot of people's skin, particularly Brazilians, who were often the target of his snide remarks. Moreover, Sonnen disrespected several legends of the sport, including the Nogueira brothers and his rival Anderson Silva, making him one of the sport's premier villains. As the years went on, most fans came to realize Sonnen's edgy persona was just a promotional tool to sell fights, and some even learned to laugh along. Still, in his UFC heyday, Chael P. Sonnen was one of the most hated men in the sport. Number 2. Michael Bisping. Much like Chael Sonnen, Michael the Count Bisping is an athlete who has become far more likable as time goes on. Still, while fighting in the UFC, the Englishman was smug, cocky, and knew how to press people's buttons. From spitting on his opponent's cornermen to running his mouth excessively, the Count was an easy man to dislike. In truth, more than a few fans celebrated when Dan Henderson knocked him senseless at UFC 100. That said, Bisping's natural charisma eventually won over the masses, setting the stage for a second career as a commentator and podcast host. Number 1. Tyron Woodley. Unlike the other fighters we've discussed, the chosen one Tyron Woodley didn't use performance-enhancing drugs, talk a lot of trash, or perform some egregious act outside the cage. However, he was one of the most hated champions in recent memory.
First of all, I'm going to give the fans a chance to boo. Go ahead and boo and get out the way. There you go.
One of the reasons people soured on the NCAA Division I wrestler was how he behaved after becoming champion. Despite being only a modest box office appeal, Woodley demanded money fights with megastars like Conor McGregor, George St. Pierre, and Nick Diaz. The call-outs seemed tone-deaf and were perceived as a snub to legitimate contenders like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and Damian Maia. Furthermore, his fighting style wasn't always fan-friendly. For example, Woodley's welterweight title clash with Damian Maia at UFC 214 set the record for the least amount of strikes thrown in a title fight. In truth, Woodley probably didn't deserve the level of hate he received from MMA fans, but sometimes life isn't fair. As always, if you guys enjoyed the video, then please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Apart from that, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.